This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Bruchim Haba, and welcome everyone. 5 electrifying Divrei Torah on Parshas Vayeilech. First, from our Elevate Your Shabbos table sheet, I want to thank the Levitan family for transcribing these Divrei Torah. I want to share with you 3 Divrei Torah on Parshas Vayeilech, and then we'll see from the Ben La'ashri. The first one is on Perek Lamed Aleph, Pasuk Yadad, Vayemer Hashem Moshe, Hin Karvu Yomecha Lamos, Kira Es Yehoshua, V'Hisyatzvu Ba'oy HaMoyed, V'Atzavenu, Vayeilech Moshe V'Yehoshua, V'Yisyatzvu Ba'oy HaMoyed. Now, Hashem says to Moshe, behold, your days have approached to die. Call Yehoshua and stand in the Oy HaMoyed, and I will command him. And Moshe and Yeshua went, and they stood in the Oy HaMoyed. So the Oznaim L'Torah of Zalman Sorotskin offers a very interesting insight in this pasuk. And Rabbi Zalman Sorotskin notes the phraseology over here. It doesn't say that Moshe will die. Hashem doesn't say, Hein Karvu Lamos, but rather, your days are nearing death. Why this unusual expression, Hein Karvu Yamecha Lamos? Your days are nearing death. It should say, Hein Karvu Misa. So this is a signal, this is a remez to that which the Gemara tells us in Brachos on Daf Yud Ches, that tzaddikim afilu b'misasam kroyim chayim. Tzaddikim don't die. Tzaddikim are always considered alive. By the way, the Maharsha explains, why are tzaddikim always considered alive? Because what's the definition of life? What's the true definition of chayim? The true definition of chayim is, what's a mayim chayim? A mayim chayim is a living spring. It means it is attached to a underground living spring, a mayon, a spring that has unlimited source of water. It is rooted in the underground water, so it is a constant mayon. That a tzaddikim are connected to the source of life. What's the source of life? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, even when they're physically not alive, even when they die, but they're connected to the Makar HaChayim, and because they're always connected to the Makar HaChayim, they're called alive even when they're dead, as opposed to the Rishaim. The Rishaim, even when they're alive, they are disconnected from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore even when they're alive, they're dead. But this is alluded to in this pasuk. It doesn't say, behold, you are approaching death. Your days are approaching dying. A righteous person doesn't technically die, but his so to speak, his days run out. This is the concept of tzaddikim afilu b'misasam chayim is alluded to in these words, Hein Karvu Yamecha Lamos. Perhaps there's another remez over here that we could add. Namely, the Arizal teaches us, and this is brought in the Archaim HaKadosh in Parshas Vayechi, that we have a similar expression by Yaakov Avinu. Vayechi, Yaakov Vayehi Yemei Chayav Vayikruvu Yemei Yisrael Lamos. Vayikruvu Yemei Yisrael Lamos. The Arizal says that each day of a person's life is a living entity. Each day, so to speak, has a personality and has its own existence, and therefore each day has to be connected to Limud Torah. Each day has to be connected to the mitzvah of chesed and tzedakah, and each day, as well, we have to connect to the mitzvah of tshuva. Therefore the pasuk says, not your life is approaching death, but your days, because each day is a separate living reality. Now, we continue on, Perek Lamed Aleph, pasuk Beis. Vayomer Alehem. Ben meyav esim shana anochi hayom lo yuchal oid lotzis v'lavoy v'Hashem amar elai lo yisaber sayarden hazeh. Rashi says the words lo yuchal oid lotzis v'lavoy, I am not able to go out and to come. They refer to b'divrei Torah. From here we see melamed shenistemu mimenu mesoiras umayonos hachachma. From here we see that the well springs of Torah became sealed off. Moshe Rabbeinu used to be like a Mayon HaMizgaber. No longer. He lost that living connection to the Torah. he wasn't able to access the well springs of Torah. Comes Rabbi Yosef Shaul Halevi Natan Zan and the Divrei Shaul, and he explains, okay, so what's the connection between Moshe Rabbeinu not being able to access his Limud Torah and the fact that Hashem told him, don't cross the Yarden? In other words, okay, I understand. Moshe says, Lo yuchal oid latzeis v'lavai. My prowess in Torah has ceased. But fine, what does that have to do with Vashem Omar Elai, Lo yisavar es hayarden hazeh? And the Shoel Umeshiv, Rabbi Yosef Shaul Halevi Natan Zan, cites the Gemara in Shabbos that gives us insight into this. Gemara in Shabbos says on Daf Lamed Amud Beis that on the final Shabbos of David HaMelech's life, he was immersed in Limud Torah, and therefore the Malach HaMaves was not able to affect him. Only after his learning was disrupted, when the Malach HaMaves went rattling around in the tree, so the Malach HaMaves was able to take away David HaMelech. Likewise, when it comes to Moshe Rabbeinu, the way that the Rebbeinu Shalom was able to preclude Moshe and prevent Moshe's access from going into Eretz Yisrael, who could stop Moshe from going to Eretz Yisrael? So long as he's still connected to the Mayonos of Chachma, nothing could stop Moshe from going into Eretz Yisrael. But the way the Rebbeinu Shalom stopped him is by removing his access from the Mayonos HaChachma, from removing his access of Lo Yuchal Oid Latzeis V'Lavoi. Through that, Hashem was able to tell Moshe Lo Savar Es Hayarden Hazeh. Okay. Next, we have the mitzvah of Ksiva Sefer Torah. V'ata kisvu lachem es hashir azois v'lamdas b'nei Yisrael sima b'fiyem leman tia li hashir azois le'ed b'vnei Yisrael. This is cited as the source for the mitzvah of Ksiva Sefer Torah, which, according to the Sefer HaMitzvahs of the Rambam, it's mitzvah Yurches, and according to the Sefer HaChinuch, it's the 613th mitzvah. Well, since there's a mitzvah to write a Sefer Torah throughout the generations, why does it start off V'ata and now Kisvu lachem es hashira azois? Why now? It's for all times. Says Reb Shlomo HaKohen of Vilna. He says, we know the well-known shita of the Rosh Menachos is that nowadays the mitzvah of Ksiva Sefer Torah is fulfilled by publishing Svarim. That's the way to be Mekayim the mitzvah of Ksiva Sefer Torah. However, before the heter to write down Torah Sheba'al Peh, you weren't allowed to publish Svarim. In other words, nowadays you're Mekayim the mitzvah of Ksiva Sefer Torah by publishing Svarim. But back in the day, Dvarim Sheba'al Peh, Yat Torah Shel Amram B'Chsav, you weren't allowed to publish Svarim. And that part of the Torah which is taught orally, you couldn't express in writing. So V'ata, now, at that time, you have to write the Torah itself. And what about the Mefarshim, Sima B'Feim? Now, since there is nowadays, since there's a heter to write the oral law, then you don't have to write a Sefer Torah, but you're mekayim the mitzvah of Ksiva Sefer Torah by publishing Svarim. In other words, the reason why the Torah says V'ata is the Torah saying, nowadays, meaning when the Torah is written in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu, there's only one way to Mekayim the mitzvah of Ksiva Sefer Torah. You have to write the Torah itself. But presently, one can Mekayim the mitzvah of Ksiva Sefer Torah by helping publish Svarim, or by publishing Svarim. So I'll take the opportunity to make a short appeal for the upcoming Svarim. Be'ezus Hashem, Sefer Bereshis is coming out. We hope it will be here Bereshis time. Working very hard. The next Sefer after that, B'siyat D'Shmaya, is going to be in English for Art Scroll on Purim. This year there are 2 Adars. So, Be'ezus Hashem, many of the Mamarim that are in the Hebrew will be in English, and there will be a number of new ones as well. And the next Hebrew Sefer to come out, we haven't announced yet. Very likely it will be Sefer Shemois, B'siyat D'Shmaya. If anybody wants to participate. Rav Nosson of Breslov says like this: this time of the year, we ask Rebbeinu Shalom to write for us many Svarim. We say, Hashem, write us in the book of Parnasa, write us in the book of Chaim, write us in the book of Shalom, write us in the book of Zechuyos. We ask God to write many books. So Rav Nosson says, the Zechus for the Rebbeinu Shalom to write for us many books is if we're involved in publishing many books. So Rav Nosson says publishing Svarim is a specific skula for the Aseret Yimei Tshuva. Okay, we now move on to the Ben La'ashri on this week's Parsha. Let's see if we could access it here. Here we go. Let's make it bigger. Okay. The Parsha begins. It's actually pretty rare. Vayeilech. How often do we have Vayeilech? We don't often have Vayeilech. Usually Nitzan and Vayeilech go together. But this year we have the opportunity to learn Vayeilech separately. So the question is, the pasuk says Vayeilech Moshe, and Moshe went. Where did he go? He went. Yeah, where? I would like to know. Wherever Moshe went, I would like to go. I wouldn't mind going where Moshe went. And the Ben Lashvi says as follows. We know that a malach is called an oimed, and an adam is called a mahalach. Like it says by Yeshua Kohen Gadol, I will give you mahalchim bein ha'oimdim. The malachim are called oimdim, and an adam is called a mahalach. And through what is a person zoicha to be a mahalach? A person is zoicha to be a mahalach al yedei the Torah. By learning Torah, by being involved in Limud Torah, we come closer and closer and closer to Hashem. We're Yelchu Mechayel El Chayel. Now here's the thing. Moshe Rabbeinu was ready to make all the mitzvahs that he could have done b'payal. There's nothing more he could have done. But Talmud Torah is a mitzvah you could always do. And you could be Mechayim Talmud Torah in a situation where you're precluded from being Mechayim mitzvahs masiyos. So Moshe Rabbeinu was always able to be a Vayeilech. Here's the problem, Rabbi say. On the day of Moshe Rabbeinu's Petira, it was Lo Yuchal Oid Lotzis V'Lavoi. The well springs of Torah were shut down to him. If so, he can't be a Vayeilech anymore. So how was Moshe Rabbeinu able to be a Vayeilech? However, on the pasuk Leicha Sa'inoi V'Leinas Leicha, the Gemara in Saita says that Moshe didn't really die. Just like in this world he was Oimed and Meshamesh, he does so similarly in the next world. So the question is, how does Moshe retain the ability to be a Vayeilech even after he dies? The answer is, Vayeilech Moshe. Moshe went. He became a Vayeilech. How did he become a Vayeilech? Because Vayedaber es hadvarim ha'ila, by teaching the Torah to Klal Yisrael. Now, even though Moshe Rabbeinu passes on, whenever a Jew learns Torah, the lips of Moshe Rabbeinu are medovivos bekever, and he continues to be a Vayeilech Moshe. He continues to be a Vayeilech, even though he's already left this world. Continuing on. Vayeilech Moshe vayedaber al kol Yisrael vayomer alehem. I'm 120 years old today. What's that big announcement that Moshe Rabbeinu is saying? That I'm 120 today. What was Moshe asking for? He wanted a birthday cake? He should have said, Lo yuchal lotzis v'lavai b'li misbar. Why does he have to give the date? I'm 120 today. And the Gemara, Rashi quotes, learns from here that Hashem is mashlim the years of tzaddikim miyom liyom umishana l'shana. But Chazal tell us one should do tshuva one day before they die. And the Gemara says, does the person know when they're going to die? And the Gemara says, yeah, you should certainly do tshuva today, maybe you'll die tomorrow. Now, common parlance is, you bless your friend, we say, you should live to be 120. Even though some Gedolim say, that's a klala. Why do you want the guy to die young? Who mehechi tesi, you can't live more than 120. Why are you being mekalel the guy? Nowadays, people could live very long. I mean, I think most people would take 120, but doesn't say anywhere you can only live 120. But the Ben La'ashri says it comes from the pasuk at the end of Bereshis, V'hayu yamav mea v'esrim shana, that Hashem says in another 120 years there's going to be a Mabul. So he reads the pasuk as follows: Vayeilech Moshe. Moshe went. Vayedaber el kol Yisrael. He spoke to Klal Yisrael. He gave them advice how to save themselves from the Yetzer Hara. You know what the advice is? You should always say, Ben Mea ve'esrim shana anoichi hayom. You should always say, today's my last day. That was the advice that Moshe Rabbeinu gave Klal Yisrael. Vayeilech Moshe, vayedaber el Yisrael, vayomer aleim, Ben Mea ve'esrim shana anoichi hayom.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.